Bihter finally, in this video we will talk about Bihter. Bihter is the first character that inspired me to open this channel. She has a very layered psychological structure, very well written and beautifully portrayed character. Because it is very about life and very realistic. I don't know how this video will be, but it will definitely have a special place for me. Roughly, we will talk about her relationship with Adnan, Behlül, and her mother in this video. We have all been waiting for this video for a very long time, so I would be very happy if it receives a like that suits it. Without further ado, let's start the video right away. Bihter is a dramatic and striking female character in the series Aşk-ı Memnu. When we look into her inner world, we are confronted with a complex psychological portrait shaped by both her personal life story and inner conflicts. Of course, let's first look at Bihter's relationship with her mother. The role of Bihter's mother, Firdevs Hanım, is extremely influential in her psychological structuring. Taking it within the framework of attachment theory, Bihter's relationship with her mother reflects an insecure and chaotic attachment model. Firdevs Hanım has disrupted the development of Bihter's basic trust by exhibiting characteristics such as emotional manipulation, focus on self-interest, and insensitivity to the child's emotional needs. Growing up in this environment, Bihter tries to suppress his feelings of anger and hatred due to his mother's constantly controlling attitudes, but he cannot suppress them. His mother's authoritarian and selfish behaviors lead to Bihter feeling trapped between not wanting to be like her and unconsciously desiring to be as strong and attention-grabbing as her. According to Melanie Klein's object relations theory, the baby sees the mother as a good object in his mind, meaning nourishing, protecting, and divides into two as the bad object that deprives and threatens. This situation affects the ways in which individuals establish relationships throughout their lives. From this perspective, Firdevs Hanım, Bihter's mother, embodies the bad object in Bihter's inner world, and she unconsciously experiences the fear of identification with this bad object, that is, the fear of not wanting to be like her. However, the fear of resembling her mother ironically brings Bihter's behaviors closer to her mother's. It evolves to become a seductive, self-serving, manipulative character like her mother. The relationship Bihter has with Behlül turns into a paradox of not wanting to resemble her mother. Actually, the discussion about her relationship with her mother never ends. Perhaps one day we can delve deeper into this in a completely different video. But for now, let's take a look at her relationship with Adnan again, still linked to Firdevs. Why did Bihter marry Adnan? I know many of you have noticed this. Of course, there are traces of lacking a mother and father in this marriage. Bihter is a girl who lost her father at a young age. A father's love is the most basic love experience for girls. This absence stems from the lack of a figure who was unconditionally loved in childhood. Because she did not receive unconditional love and acceptance from her mother. Adnan is close to his father in age, mature, and a secure figure. This marriage can be seen as an attempt by Bihter to fulfill the absence of a father figure in her unconscious mind. In fact, there is a saying that Bihter loves Adnan separately just for the role of fatherhood. Your father is really lucky. I think I love him a little because of you too, maybe. In other words, Adnan is not just a husband, but also represents the archetype of a protective father. Especially a woman with a family dynamic like Bihter's turning towards someone who appears older and protective can be explained by clinically repetitive relationship patterns. Also, concerning Firdevs Hanım, Adnan is a man who has caught Firdevs's eye. She is making a strategic plan, not an emotional plan, to marry Adnan. However, Adnan's interest is in Bihter, and this interest provides a perfect ground for Bihter to use it against her mother. Bihter harbors such anger towards his mother that he wants to be known not as her daughter, but as someone's wife. Marrying someone and leaving seems like a way to sever ties with Firdevs Hanım. When I become Adnan Bey's wife, I will be freed from being Firdevs Hanım's daughter. Just make do with this idea for a while. Don't yearn for more. Anyone could have wanted to be known as someone's wife. But particularly wanting to be Adnan's wife stems from his mother's interest in Adnan. Therefore, even acquiring a symbolically powerful and prestigious figure like Mr. Adnan is actually a reflection of her desire to prove herself to her mother. However, of course, Bihter does not approach Adnan solely for personal gain. Adnan appears as a person who approaches her with kindness, providing assurance, appearing as a calming haven. He soothes Bihter's feeling of not having anyone, giving her a sense of home and family. Adnan's protective and respectful approach towards Bihter calms her inner turbulence. This emotional connection is initially established with genuine attraction and mutual respect. She also sees her own sadness in Adnan's eyes. Since he also lost his father, he feels that his sorrow will be understood by Adnan. Yes, I really love him. Adnan's gaze penetrates into me, Peker. In the depth of his eyes, there is a face of mine where I see myself. Kind, someone I can trust in every way. In other words, aside from Adnan's mother's interest in him, Adnan also attracts Bihter's attention in these ways. Think of it as hitting 3, 5, 10 birds with one stone. He is both sacrificing his mother and thus obtaining an important figure for her, impressing her, and also breaking his bond with his mother, as well as finding a father figure to seek refuge in, securing her future with a wealthy man, and entering into a shared experience with a man who is suffering from the same problems as himself and therefore capable of understanding him deeply. In other words, in the marriage plan with Adnan, Bihter wins in every aspect. This is actually an attempt to compensate for narcissistic wounds altogether. But because of Bihter's identity crisis and inner restlessness, this marriage plan becomes not a sword of belonging, but a temporary harbor of peace. In the days after her marriage to Adnan, she constantly tries to make herself accepted and loved by the household. But of course, the household members do not welcome her with open arms. Due to being Firdevs Hanım's daughter, she does not have a very good reputation in the eyes of those at home. Therefore, her anger and hatred towards her mother constantly increase. In fact, even when she tries to get rid of her mother, at the moment she gets rid of her, that is when she gets married, she is humiliated because of her mother. She distances herself from the bad object, her mother, and approaches the good objects, those at home. However, she still cannot become a part of that family. For example, one day when they all talk about the past together, Bihter feels both very distant and very foreign in that moment. She watches their happy conversations from the outside and realizes each time that she can never be a part of this family. While she appears to want this, she also knows that her true innermost desire is not this. The mansion they live in is already very isolated from the outside world, they don't even have friends coming in and out of the house. They are living a very closed and conservative life in their own way. Especially Mademoiselle and Nihal are like this. They are not very inclined to accept anyone from the outside or engage in a common sharing with them. And that's why Bihter struggles a lot with this. After Firdevs Hanım moves into the mansion, we start to see a slow change in Bihter. She starts to react more. So to speak, she loses her balance. Because she has unresolved loops regarding her childhood traumas, perhaps the desire for acceptance, are always triggered in his eyes when he feels he has failed or made a wrong move. For example, Firdevs Hanım makes a comment about the household staff like this: "Can't you get your point across?" What do you mean? I would have said it right away, they would have done it. Then why didn't they do it when you told them? Can't they stomach taking orders from you? Do they still not accept that you are the lady of the house? I think you should take precautions, Bihter. Otherwise, these will cause you a lot of trouble, let me tell you. We can see that Bihter is triggered at that moment from her face anyway. Actually, this is not a simple matter of falling for manipulation. She feels inadequate by her mother here. Whenever her mother implies even slightly or sends a manipulative message of inadequacy, the child within Bihter becomes more aggressive, more passionate, and more reactive in order to prove that she has succeeded. Many times, she looks at herself with Firdevs's eyes. Because she has the same eyes. No matter how much she denies it, no matter how much she refuses it, she is actually the daughter of a complete Firdevs Hanım. Everything she has will now be mine as well. That safe won't open for you. Don't get your hopes up in vain. I know this woman. The same ambition, the same anger, the same objection. No matter how much you say, I am my father's daughter, you are my daughter, Bihter. I am proud of you. For instance, Here, when she hears that she resembles her mother, she gets angry but doesn't reject it. She contemplates and it becomes a moment of awareness that troubles her. On one side is Bihter, evaluated with her mother's look and resembling her, while on the other side is Bihter who wants to be seen by her but resists being her. The derailment of her balance can be explained by the constant conflict between these two identities. When her mother is present, Bihter cannot feel like an individual. Unresolved loops related to her mother bring forth questions like who am I, what do I want, why am I here into the unconscious. The constant emotional tension she experiences next to her mother weakens her defense mechanisms. Normally able to control herself, Bihter experiences emotional regression when she is with her mother. In other words, she loses her adult side and starts to act with the reactive and fragile aspects of her childhood. The issue of being provoked by Firdevs's comments about the household staff that happened a short while ago is also because of this. He goes to the employees and dismisses the house staff in a way that is unreasonable and unbecoming of an adult. This issue leads to a rupture in his relationship with Adnan. Just 2 to 3 months after their marriage with Adnan, she realizes how incompatible they actually are in some aspects. Therefore, when Bihter is alone with Adnan, she starts to feel a drowning sensation, a discomfort even in his gaze. This suffocation feeling has been with Bihter since the first days. This causes her to think that this marriage won't last long, and over time, Bihter starts to feel emptiness and desires within herself, finding the peace she has with Adnan to be insufficient. After that, Behlül in the house starts to attract her attention. Because on one hand, the resistance to not becoming like his mother is an obstacle to him making original decisions, and this resistance will eventually be broken. On the other hand, Behlül actually has some common points with her. Both of them did not grow up in a healthy and whole family environment and are young people seeking excitement. She's starting to slowly develop an interest in Behlül in this way. However, this interest is terrible in every aspect. Behlül is both her husband's nephew and getting involved with him will remind Bihter of her mother. That's why she initially categorically rejects her interest in Behlül. I will show a scene about this. Bihter's sister Peker was in love with Behlül years ago. Years go by and Peker falls in love with her current husband and marries him. Despite putting Behlül in a separate place, she is only looking at it as a youthful love and is very happy with her current husband. However, Bihter seems to be warning her as if Peker is still in love with Behlül. It seemed to me as if the smallest spark would ignite this love. What do you say? Is it going to happen? Of course, let it not be something that won't happen. You are married, you have a child. Get a hold of yourself and don't risk your marriage. What's happening to you? You're talking as if you don't know me at all. I just wanted to warn you. I love my husband, Bihter. I didn't get married to betray him. She was actually aware that she was starting to feel a slight interest in Behlül. But this was something she couldn't accept. So facing this was very difficult. But living with this awareness was also very difficult. She couldn't keep it inside anymore and had to utter these sentences. It would be more manageable to burden Peker with them. So, in fact, the words she said to Peker were actually meant for herself. Peker was already very surprised to hear these sentences. Because she loved her husband very much and she was confident in herself. The one who was not self-assured was Bihter. By not daring to confront their own issues, they projected them onto Peker. In other words, they exactly used the defense mechanism of projection. Therefore, Peker's statement that she did not marry to cheat on her husband struck a chord within Bihter. Because the one facing the threat of cheating on their spouse was herself. Let's now talk a bit about Bihter's impulsive and sudden decision-making processes. Because of its connection to Behlül. This is frequently seen in individuals experiencing feelings of internal emptiness and identity confusion in a psychodynamic perspective. In fact, it is an effort to relieve oneself by expressing the feelings and conflicts one does not want to think about, perhaps even fears carrying in their mind. However, when we look at everyone at home, especially at Adnan and Mademoiselle, we see the opposite. They think for hours before making a decision. People who take action by measuring and weighing. However, Bihter, on the contrary, can act so honestly that he could even suddenly decide to take his baby. He doesn't even see this abortion issue as something that could be a big problem for Adnan anyway. That's why he doesn't feel the need to tell Adnan. He thinks he will digest this abortion issue in a short time. But after Firdevs' warning, he realizes the seriousness of the situation and goes to talk to Adnan. However, there is a determined man who takes this matter quite seriously in front of him. And he is a man who expresses his disappointment and anger about this incident by carefully choosing his words after thinking about it for a long time. I went to the doctor and had the baby terminated as we discussed. I don't remember making such a decision. What does this mean? Can you please tell me, what does it mean? You are raising your voice again. Look at the words Adnan uses. A man who speaks delicately, describing. Bihter again realizes that she cannot reach this depth and cannot find common ground with Adnan. A bewildered look on her face. Why does this statement have so much impact? The difference in life experience between them is very clear. It is evident that Bihter is not ready for such seriousness from her every action and that she is still a young woman keeping her emotions intact. All of this creates a sense of alienation and inadequacy for Bihter. If you ask why she had the baby aborted, there are several reasons again. Firstly, she believes that the child would be a binding tie to Adnan and she is afraid of that. Because for Bihter, a tie means loss of control. He had already lost complete control in the bond he formed with Behlül. At the same time, the birth of this child would have led Bihter to find herself even more on a path similar to her mother's. Deep down, becoming a mother resembles being restricted like Firdevs. The child symbolizes the risk of Bihter becoming like her mother. And for Bihter, this risk is of such importance that it is not worth taking. Indeed, that's why she suddenly decides to have an abortion. Because if she thinks about why she wanted to terminate the pregnancy, her fear of resembling her mother Firdevs and their cycles will surface. That's why it is much easier to terminate the pregnancy abruptly without delving into these fears and vulnerabilities. And she also resorts to the argument of the fight they had with Adnan the day before the abortion incident because of the house staff. This fight is due to what we just saw, Bihter falling for Firdevs' manipulation and the issue of dismissing the house staff. The household staff is very valuable to Mr. Adnan. However, due to a mistake, Bihter fires the staff from the house. When Adnan insists that this situation should be reported to him, they have an argument. In this argument, there is no logic from Bihter's perspective. Her completely narcissistic side is dominant. She diverts Adnan's main issue to a different place and experiences a narcissistic injury. If you had let me deal with them in this way, the situation wouldn't have escalated. It wouldn't have climbed up at that moment. I apologize. I thought they were the workers of this house. No one told me they were the masters of the house. Sir, please. I didn't know that I had no authority over them. I apologize. I really apologize a lot. Sir, that's enough. Even though you know very well what I want to say, you stubbornly divert it elsewhere. You are scolding me. I'm not scolding. Look, you're doing the same thing again. You are looking at it from a different perspective. I can't believe you raised your voice at me because of the servants. They are not servants. First, accept that. Then please admit that you are wrong for informing me of such a decision without sharing it with me. I am shocked, I am hurt. I am very offended. You hurt me last night for the following reasons, just as I was. Did you retaliate with something like this? Like seeking revenge, like giving punishment. Of course, you don't care about your baby because of the argument that happened a day ago. However, implying this ends for nothing and has no meaning. However, the fact that Firdevs Hanım believes she does not resemble her and thinks she will be a failed mother has a great significance in the decision to give the baby up for adoption. And confronting this is very difficult. Therefore, she connects the adoption of the baby to the argument that happened yesterday in her mind. This argument may indeed serve as a push for the decision to give the baby up for adoption. However, it is not the cause. For all of this, Bihter cannot see herself in such a serious world. I am not a person of this world. It's like I don't belong here. He begins to live his days with weariness. It is right here that the attraction between Bihter and Behlül starts. Both of them are people who make sudden decisions and avoid thinking deeply. Behlül, just like Bihter, also lives by instant reactions. The urge to live life to the fullest in the moment draws them together. This impulsive excitement means a breathing space for Bihter. Because Behlül, like Matmazel or Adnan, does not speak by weighing his words. Behlül's relationship activates the childlike freedom and passion within Bihter. One day, before their relationship has even begun, Behlül and Bihter talk. They both talk about their desires and dreams. Both of theirs are full of adventure. Bihter realizes that none of these common points with Behlül exist with Adnan. And a wistful smile forms on her face. This summer we have a few plans with friends. How nice. Maybe you will also come. No, you know Adnan prefers comfort. He doesn't want to go up and down 1,000 steps. Now you will travel for me as well. Okay. Bihter's passion for adventure and excitement is not suitable for Adnan. In this car, she cannot speed up with Adnan, she can speed up with Behlül. The fast and dangerous journey in the car also represents Bihter's rebellious and rule-breaking side. At that moment, Behlül makes a very crucial statement. Upon hearing this sentence, we can see the emotional change in Bihter. You are too quick to become a mother. Thankfully, you didn't give birth. She is experiencing guilt about herself and facing her own shortcomings here. However, she does not have the courage to confront this. And by changing the subject, she pulls the car to the right. Bihter immediately pulls the car to the right to check the engine. Changing the environment is actually a classic suppression and escape response. Because if she openly shows her anger or sadness to Behlül at that moment, she will exhibit her emotional nakedness, and to not show this weakness, she changes the environment and the subject. This is a typical reflection of Bihter's effort to control herself and her emotions. Bihter's sexuality is again one of the most striking and complex elements of the series. It emerges as an extension of power and control. Sexuality is I am here for Bihter and the message of a desired woman. This is also identified with her mother Firdevs Hanım's model of female power. However, Bihter's sexuality becomes not just a satisfaction area, but also a dimension in which she alienates herself. Behlül's indifference or the guilt he feels due to this betrayal leads Bihter to question her sexuality as well. Do these desires set me free or do they serve my extinction? Am I a woman who makes her husband cry just like my mother, or does this intense passion actually reveal who I am and where I want to go? These questions make Bihter's sexual identity both a source of power and a matter of shame. Bihter's chaotic and insecure attachment model paves the way for the constant triggering of guilt. On one hand, she sees her relationship with Behlül as a sublime and ultimate love, on the other hand, she constantly experiences tension with the awareness that it is a forbidden and dirty relationship. This duality makes her guilt feelings chronic. Combining the unconscious anger she feels towards her mother and the desire she directs towards Behlül brings her both pleasure and regret. In addition, Bihter's sexuality informs her about her narcissism. For example, Heinz Kohut's theory of narcissism is clearly evident in Bihter. According to Heinz Kohut's theory, individuals support their self-values with external sources. These external sources could be things like being loved, achieving success, or being admired. And these external sources are referred to as self-objects. For Bihter, Behlül is also like a self-object. Behlül's interest and love it allows Bihter to feel valuable and beautiful. Bihter wants to see herself as perfect, strong, and admired. This image is fueled by Behlül's attention. When Behlül loses interest, Bihter's grandiose identity cracks. The secret relationship she has with Behlül serves as a mirror directed at this grandiose self. Behlül's admiration and passion make Bihter feel valuable and desirable. But when this mirror is broken, Bihter's self-esteem rapidly collapses with Behlül's indifference and pushing her into the background. Like we said earlier, Behlül is an object of self for Bihter. That is, he is an external source that sustains Bihter's self-worth. And with Behlül distancing himself, Bihter's inner world is left as a significant void. All of these, and many more, lead to the gradual breaking of Bihter's identity and ultimately lead her to her end. In this video, we briefly talked about Bihter's relationship with Adnan, her mother, and Behlül. It turned out to be a longer video than my usual ones. However, it is definitely not over yet. Bihter is a character written in great depth, and I am thinking of preparing 1 or 2 more videos about Bihter. In fact, in one video, we will focus solely on Bihter's relationship, which is a completely separate important issue. You can send this video to lovers of happy love. And be sure to subscribe to the channel for other parts. In the next Bihter video, you can also leave the places you want me to mention additionally in the comments. I can look into them too.